What's up, guy? What is up, guy? Welcome back to what Josue has to say. If you're new here, I am Josue, and this is what I have to say. Today's topic, red pilling. What is red pilling? I think most of us know what a red pill is, but if you don't, I'm pretty sure it originates back to the Matrix movie when Morpheus is giving Neo the blue or the red pill and kind of letting him choose, oh, well, if you take the blue, it's status quo. Things stay the norm.
Go back to sleep.
You go back to sleep. Nothing happened. But the red pill is where it's at. The red pill gives you the forbidden knowledge or the alternative truth. You know, that's a popular term these days.
It's not an alternative truth. It's the truth.
Yeah.
The truth.
The alternative is a lie.
But I also want to go ahead and say how we're going to get into the topic of are all red pills truth, or is there actual misinformation with some red pills? And you got to be careful what you're, feeding yourself, right?
I think a lot of with that stuff is that it kind of ties in sometimes with like I don't give a fuck mindset in certain aspects, and people take those too far and it ends up shooting themselves in the feet by doing something like that.
Absolutely.
There's like a really specific finite way to like intake like the red pill in certain topics.
Absolutely. Yeah. So to help me out with this topic, I have brought 3 red pill connoisseurs, I would say. Logan Fitz, Jake Yngblood, and SolBrah. Welcome on the podcast.
Thanks
for having us.
So I want to go really quickly without getting too much description. How did you guys run into the whole red pill? I mean, obviously most people run into it online, but what was your journey before that? How did you kind of like stumble onto it and your life now?
Lifting was the start.
Lifting?
Yeah.
Like weights?
Yeah. It's the start of the whole kind of rabbit hole. It's like, how do I get bigger? How do I improve myself? And then researching on the internet. There's a lot of like, back in the day when I kind of started researching how to get bigger, there's a lot of kind of esoteric fitness boards and things like that, which weren't monitored as a lot of them are now. So there's a lot of wild information out there that wasn't necessarily fitness related, but just like you spend hours kind of scouring like what's the best supplement and everything. And then you just like, oh, why was I lied to about, for instance, the food pyramid? Why was that BS? Like that actually doesn't help me, stay lean and, facilitate how my body wants to perform. And then you can kind of go like, oh, you jump from that to why all the health organizations selling something that's not actually making people healthy.
Yeah.
And then you see, oh, okay, so there's this big pharmaceutical groups behind everything. And what is our hospital system set up? So it's like, you go from how do I get my arms bigger to we're being controlled by this whole thing behind the scenes. Like
the funny thing you said about the hospital, my girlfriend works as in the ER room as a nurse right now, and she tells me some horror stories. Like you don't go there.
They're killing people.
Yeah, you don't go there to get better. You go there to die.
Yeah.
And it's scary. It's like I can like everything I need to do to stay healthy is outside of the hospital.
It's a sick care system, not a healthcare system.
Yeah.
So what about you two? How did you guys kind of get into it?
Yeah, I think I had very, very similar to Sol. Like
the lifting forums.
Oh, I was an athlete.
Original Reddit rabbit holes.
Yeah, I was an athlete, and I was like a good athlete, but not what I wanted to be, And I just like really, that's all I cared about when I was 14. So I got into that. And you start finding these treasure chests, and then I had an autoimmune disorder, Graves' disease, when I was like 15.
Oh shit, really?
And everything that they were kind of having me do was like not really moving the needle. And I just kind of really got tired of it and just started researching, found a host of really good information online. And so I think that definitely set the precedent of like, okay, I'm going to take this into my own hands. Definitely for me too. That kicked it off. I think the whole Trump thing, because I never really cared. I was just like, another...
Yeah, Trump was a catalyst for a lot of things.
It was. I really started thinking like critically about what was going on with that. And then, like maybe a year or two later, just all of these things piled up, and I went to go drop out of school and just really like started looking even deeper into it. That's when I started getting into the wild stuff. But I would say those 3 things in general, like taking control of my health,
which is the foundation for everything.
It's the foundation. Taking care of my health and fitness, taking control of my belief systems, politically, religiously, like all across the board, and then taking care of my finances and like really carving out my career path, life path, whatever. Like those 3 things.
I think it's important to note that the kind of second order effect of getting your health in order is that your intuition performs better.
My gosh.
And then you can actually, like, one, you have the energy and you're not like hamstrung by things like sore back or just like low energy because your diet is shit or whatever. So you get rid of all that stuff that's blocking it. And then the spiritual energy and your intuition and like your DNA, ancestral memory start to come in, and you start to look at the world and go, nah, that doesn't look right. Whereas before you were distracted with drugs or alcohol or just poor health in general, that now you fix your health, and then you start to look, wait, I'm being lied to on a lot of different levels. Like, what's going on? And just in your gut, you know that something wasn't right.
Your level of consciousness just kind of expands. You know what I mean? You start seeing things more from an aerial view, I guess. That's the way you can compare it.
Yeah.
Rather than
4D than 3D. And not just here and now, but just like, whoa, what else is going on?
Absolutely. Jake, what about you?
Yeah, mine was actually, I think I was a senior in high school, and I was getting ready to go to San Diego State. And I just loved the kind of the whole aspect of like the social atmosphere of San Diego State. And I knew there were a lot of like really cool people there that I knew from my high school. So I wanted to go in there with a lot of like information that could make me more unique as a person and also help me. And so I just kind of went through the same like Reddit rabbit holes that everyone else was going through and just like digested the shit out of those all day, every single day.
I want to make it clear I was never on Reddit. Not once.
That's a lie. Really?
Yeah, he hates Reddit.
I'm not a Reddit.
4chan's where it all
4chan,
started. Yeah. Reddit started to like collect things.
4chan's like
I'm like a bodybuilding.com kind of guy, and then Google rabbit holes from there.
Yeah.
I like, I had.
And then eventually IG. There's a lot of like people like that on IG, or there was back in the day.
No, there still is.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say like I did a lot of the fitness stuff just within like my friends in high school. But more so it was like kind of girl stuff at the time. I wanted to be like more of a desirable person that not even just girls, like also like good guy friends too. And I wanted to make the campus as small as possible. So wherever I went, I wanted to be able to say hi to someone. And so I feel like you couldn't really do that if you didn't have like an expanded mindset of like certain different topics and stuff.
Social dynamics
like
and just like, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
How to win friends and influence people is a bit of a meme, but like, it tells you, for the most part, like how do you interact with other human beings?
Yeah.
If you didn't grow up with a social, a good social experience and like meeting lots of people, then, which is a lot of people in today's kind of unstructured, atomized world, you go to the internet and as you know, it is better to have the real life experience. You do need to apply it in real life. You can learn a lot of stuff about human interaction and social dynamics and like what perceived value is and like how do I raise that, or which at the end of the day is just being a good person, being interested in people and working on yourself until you like actually have value to bring and knowledge to bring to people. That's like the summary of it, but there are a lot of kind of smaller things that you can learn.
I think for me it was something similar. In high school, I was not popular, but it was like I was social. But the thing with me is that I'm naturally introverted, so I was easily drained all the time. Mm-hmm. And it took me kind of like, red pilling myself to not only notice that that was me draining myself by hanging out with people that I shouldn't be hanging out with. You improve the quality of your circles once you start improving all those other areas. You know what I mean? Yeah. You start seeing it different, and you don't just give your energy away, which is like a currency. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an overall like mindset shift to where, like you said, if you are going to evolve as a consciousness, you kind of have to set your frame as a person to where your goalpost is, I'm going to find truth, whether that's about what you are as a person and being honest with yourself or externally in society. But I think that's the biggest or most fundamental thing is like because a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people set their basis on what makes them feel better, what upholds their egoic mind, but you have to have that frame of, I need to know what the truth is, and then I'll operate from that point forward.
I think a lot of that is predicated on our intuition as well, because like I know I personally pride myself in like a really strong intuition. I know you three can also like attest to that too. I mean, there's a reason why we're talking about this, and like certain life experiences that we've had is because of that.
Absolutely. That's a good segue into, you mentioned truth, right? So I wanted to ask another question, but this is a good segue. What are your takes on truth? Or is there an absolute truth? Do subjective truths exist, or can they both coexist?
I think they can both coexist to some degree. Like it's kind of a meme now. You hear people say, "Let me like speak my truth." Like there is some reality in that. People's perspective are real and they will shape a situation. But I mean, overall, we live in a world that there's hard data that determines that. And I think, or if there's not, we need it. You know what I mean? And in a lot of these places where there's like a red pill to be found, one of the big things that I think is holding us back is there isn't data on it. You know, like all the stuff that we kind of propagate.
So it's easy to dismiss. Yeah,
it's easy to dismiss because we don't have the hard evidence that we need as a society, I guess. So I mean, yeah, they can definitely both coexist, but I think having that hard evidential, and also too, like the truth is, you know what I'm saying? Like it just exists. The truth is there. It's not.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not like immutable. You can't change it. It just is.
The only truth that exists in the world is that you have a consciousness. That's full stop. The only thing that can be proven that is that I am.
So
that's
you're saying everything else is like subjective?
Yeah,
in essence,
it is like I am. Everything else is a perspective, a belief, a conjecture, just like an opinion. Like nothing else can be proven, regardless of data. Like at a fundamental level, is like it's I am. I know I have this consciousness, and there are things around me, and all the rest of the hard data we think it is. It's like, yeah, we're measuring it in a certain way, and then we get these numbers, and we can say that there's a relationship there. And a lot of that can be proven, let's say, and like most situations it can be true. But at a fundamental level, the only thing that we truly, truly know is that you have a consciousness and you're here.
That's really good, yeah.
Everything else past that is like a belief and, you know, like all the other things, which for the most part, people's beliefs create their reality. So whatever beliefs they choose to have, because it is a choice at the end of the day, whatever data they choose to, reinforce those beliefs, they will then perceive that and attract that into their own life. So, you know, the takeaway from that is like, choose the beliefs that are going to be best for you. That's like the most practical application of that principle. But yeah, everything else is like, it's I am, and everything else is, you know, fairy dust at the end of the day, if you really break it down.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like that. Yeah.
That's I mean, I don't disagree with that. I agree with it. But then where do you sort of draw the line for, like, I guess there has to be some sort of like, there's still beliefs maybe to some extent, but then where do you throw in like objective data? How does that filter into?
Do you think people can still perceive that differently?
Yeah. Some people, you can look at the same set of numbers and someone will say, oh, this means that this group is doing this, and the other one will say, oh, but that data is only here because of this, and so it's preconceived beliefs.
That's the essence of science.
Yeah, same thing with music too. When we're making music, you might hear a different chord progression than how I imagine in my mind.
That's pure subjectivity, though. I'm saying like there has to be some level of like objective logic flow in order for there to be truth, right?
Well, that's
I think
the only thing that we can truly be is like, there's this experience that is appearing on this screen of consciousness for me, and then I am the person, or I am the thing that is viewing this thing on the screen. So there's the viewer, there's what is being viewed, and that's it. That's all we can at a fundamental level prove. Now, there's definitely, I'm not saying like discount hard data, and it's always better to have that and like back up what you think with the best information that you have, and then take that and choose the beliefs and how to interpret things, which is going to maximize the success of your life and maximize the love and whatever else you bring to the world. That's how you have to operate. I agree with you as well. There needs to be some basis in reality, even if it is, you know, conjecture. But you have to operate in this physical reality, even if you are just a consciousness.
It's where we're at. There's no other way around it.
Yeah.
That's one of the things too that I think I take gripe with, or maybe not gripe, but I look at it and I don't resonate with it when I feel like there is a large percentage of the people who are maybe quote unquote red pilled, right, who start to disregard that physical objective reality. That's something that I see
disconnected, completely.
Yeah, that I see that it really is
too spiritual.
Yeah, too exactly. Like
at that point, you're hindering yourself.
Yeah, I knew a kid who was like that.
You get lost.
He kind of took the like I don't give a fuck mindset that some people take when they're like absorbing all this information, and he just went like off the deep end. it's like there's like a very tasteful way of like being
Like,
I don't know how to like I don't give a fuck, but then when you start being like I don't give a fuck and you start treating others people poorly because you have that mindset, I think it's just not okay.
Like realistically, if you're going to red pill yourself, you have to if it's not improving your
life,
your reality,
you're
objective, your objective reality of your life and the quality of that, then you're not actually red pilled.
Yeah.
That's a great,
I would say
that's a great way to put it. Why do you guys think that there's such a thirst these days for red pill? Because I mean, there's always been
I think
alternatives.
It's so
and
prevalent that there's so many lies out there nowadays.
Yeah, humanity's waking up in general.
Have no idea what's going on. I mean, you can go off of so many tangents with that, but there's the food, obviously. There's big pharma.
The last few years
veganism,
has
like,
just proven that like the people that we think are in charge have zero clue what they're doing, or they're being influenced by nefarious people behind the scenes. And like, there's no way that someone with a minimum IQ could see what's happening and not at least feel something like, wait a minute.
Well, let me
like,
tell
what's
you.
actually going on? Yeah.
Let me tell you.
well, like
McDonald's isn't good for me.
Like 2020, I think there is that big. I think there's a couple aspects, right? There is the fact that it's very clear, I would say, since maybe 2016, that like the scale of some of the things that are going on behind the scenes has massively accelerated. Like 2020 was maybe the greatest psychological operation that's been performed on humanity of all time, right? Like really at its core. And so I think that there is, like, of course, everything functions in duality, right? As you know, everything ebbs and it flows and it has that duality to it. And so as you increase the intensity of some of these psychological consciousness operations, then obviously there's going to be a swing to counter that. And that is a piece of people waking up in the thirst for some of this truth. I think there also can be a piece of where people now, like really, we live in an era where the internet, and is such a blessing, has been such a blessing for me and I think all of us here. But I think we've kind of neutered the age of exploration and people doing things. And so you put those two things together, and I think also it's a kind of an escape for a lot of people. And they use this thirst for information to fill the void that could be them going out and doing the things in life that maybe in 1990.
Well, yeah, the internet has really leveled the playing field in terms of information. Like back in the day, our grandparents, they had the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was it, and word of mouth.
Yeah.
So like you couldn't just get on the internet and research like, okay, what is the healthiest diet, or like what is my government doing, and what have they done in the past? It was just like you read the newspaper and headlines, and we know how fake media is. So you know, as much as they try to censor and everything, and I don't know whether that in itself, like if they could just effectively ban anyone that isn't, like, I don't know whether they're like holding up on that or whatever, but there's still so many people like us that are putting out stuff that is antithetical to what is the mainstream stuff. So it's like, if you have the curiosity, it's all there.
Mm-hmm.
Even not on social media, on forums and things. And the internet has just enabled anyone to have a voice, which is like really been like, oh, there's other stuff out there.
So like you said, we're flooded with information these days. Where as our ancestors or grandparents, they didn't have enough, the same amount, I guess, that we have. So with that being said, it's the age of information. You said duality, right? A lot of information also comes with the dark side, information that's not valid. Yeah. How can you better filter? How can you better, I guess, groom through that and know, I guess, what to take and what not to take?
Well, it's like what Logan said. Sorry.
Go for it.
If it's improving your life.
Exactly.
If it's improving your life, your physique's getting better, your health is improving, then you're getting more girls, you're more social. That's the truth.
Sorry to cut you off, but I also think it could be a byproduct of who your friends are as well.
Yeah.
You know, if you're around winners like that, it'd be pretty easy to tell if this person's having a good, successful, healthy life. It'd be pretty easy to decipher.
I would say, too, the big thing that gets kind of missed is you have to test it, right? Like in the age of information, the second edge of that sword is that you could be overwhelmed with it, right? And so like he said, like you have to see if it's improving your quality of life. Like there's so many people that get all this information now and they will never reap the benefits or not, or learn from it because they don't you still have to do it yourself. And that's like the biggest downfall now. We have the tools. You could learn anything you want in 10 hours on YouTube, period. but will you go execute it? Because that's the difference between somebody that's going to have mastery or have an improved outcome or anything really.
So that's really what I was getting at, was the actually having to do it part. Mm-hmm. That's what I was fishing for, that you can't really just skim through something and objectively, assess at the moment, well, this is true or this is not true, or this works or this not. You have to implement it. And then from that point, then see, well, no, my life is better or not.
It's like, even at a macro scale, you can look at countries that have, let's say, good government. There's some would say that there is no government is good government.
Costa Rica
is there a government that's functioning? Are the people happy? Is the economy improving, or are things going downhill? It's like, okay, objectively, like maybe those people don't know what they're talking about business wise. Are they making money? Are they good products? Like, are there negative externalities that they're pushing off to the community around them? Like, is someone jacked? Is someone healthy? Have they got a loving relationship? A lot of people are taking advice online from people that they emit things from their life, or they look like they're getting lots of girls, but like, do they actually have healthy long-term relationships and kids and a healthy marriage? No. So there's like, depending on what you want out of your life, then look to the people that have achieved that. And even amongst that, there are people that might not necessarily know what they're talking about. And so you have to take a wide range of information and then apply it to your own life and see what works for you. And that's the only truth that you can really create for yourself.
I think it's a little bit off topic, but one of the biggest like red pills and truths that SolBrah told me one time is that it's like, a man's sexual energy is the most powerful thing it has in essence. And have you ever like had like a random one night stand, you hooked up with a girl and you kind of just feel like shit in the morning?
Yeah, you feel depleted.
You're just wasting, like you're basically just using her body as masturbation. And so when you brought that up to me, it just like clicked. It's like all the times you just like, I hoed around in college or just like fucking around, I feel like shit the next day. It's just like, because I thought on the outside I was cool, I'm sleeping with all these girls and all that stuff.
You think it's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, you think it's what you're supposed to do.
Because they shape it to be like this positive societal, like,
you're young,
right, yeah, you're young, you fuck around.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's probably hurting me more than it's doing me any good. I was having that conversation actually with somebody recently, a friend of mine, and he kind of idolizes, I don't want to say idolizes, but for lack of a better term, Dan Bilzerian.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's cool, man. Like, I think everything's gimmicky. I don't think there's anything maybe not to say that he's not authentic, but the lifestyle he portrays doesn't seem authentic. And it's what Sol just said. Like, how many relationships in his life are actually like loving, fulfilling? All these rented girls on a yacht with like these rented guns and all that shit. Like,
and he's got a pretty bad addiction. Fitz and I were looking at a YouTube video the other day, and he just like, I think it was on Impulsive, and he outright just said like, yeah, I have like a terrible sex addiction. and like some people can portray that as like kind of G and it's cool, but it's like he probably feels pretty shitty about himself. He's just fucking these girls just to try and feel something that he never will.
Yeah, it's at the base level. That's like your root chakra, which is the first energy center out of the 7 in the human body. So it's like this whole thing, like you're told to sleep around and like, experiment while you're young. It all comes back to try to break down the family unit, which then has an impact on lowering the amount of people that are born in the world. That's like the central goal to these people behind the scenes that are doing these things. So all of the media, all of the music, all of the celebrities, like it's like this multifaceted thing where the central point is to like eliminate the things that make people have kids and strong families and like strong values and things.
I think also too, it's like maybe a layer, because that's probably like you said, the real tangential goal of like these sort of shadowy systems. But I think even a layer above that too is to denature God as well. Like that, like denature God is the pyramid, and then that's like their biggest thing below that.
Yeah.
But it falls in line with everything you just said.
Low consciousness. When people are in that low consciousness, stuck in that root chakra, sexual energy, they can never ascend past that. They're never going to ascend their energetic level. And at a mass scale, the average human energy, when it's below a certain point, then they can be controlled by this, let's say Luciferian consciousness that is aiming to bring down humanity or like control humanity. And if that sounds out there or whatever, that's what's happening.
I don't think I mean, I guess we're in the trenches, so maybe nothing will sound too out there, But I think like that.
We've taken the deep dive at this point.
I think that is like maybe one of the, like everything we've talked about too, like testing this stuff in your life. I think that you really too have to, that's another huge piece of being quote unquote red pilled, is operating from that consciousness that is of light and of love, and really utilizing that and spreading it, because you're probably not going to get to the right information or testing it on yourself and executing it. Like that to me is the first piece. You have to energetically, and I'm not like secular. I do believe in God in some degree. I've read different, I grew up Christian, whatever. It's not really that important though to me, the secularity of it. But I really think that finding that sort of divine
source,
the source within you, like that is the preeminent thing.
Otherwise, like you guys just mentioned, it's how different are you from an animal? Just operating off of instinct and primal, like carnal activity. Like you aren't that conscious, that you have the consciousness of an animal. You're not really human, at least I would think, right?
Yeah.
You guys did mention how health is kind of like the foundation of, I guess, truly red pilling yourself. So with that being said, I wanted to talk about diet a little bit. Diet. We have, I guess, would you guys call it a fad? Would you guys call it the true source of diet? We got Liver King, we got Carnivore Aurelius, we got Carnivore MD. There's a big push now for the carnivore diet. What do you guys think about that? Do you guys think that, for example, Carnivore MD, he's all about everything's bullshit besides fruit and meat, basically. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas other people are like, no, like vegetables play a role too. Plants have healing matter, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what do you guys, what's the take on that,
so I think I've played with it all. I remember like before it was a mainstream cool thing. Like I found Sean Baker in end of 2018. And then I was carnivore for about 4 months after that, to start 2019. And to give you the short answer on my opinion of all this stuff, like obviously Sol and I are both very in that like world as a profession, I guess. And I know it's been super impactful for you, Jake.
Yeah.
More than anything, man, I think that there's no like people just need to eat real food consistently. Like if you want to throw a vegetable, like we can go into all the nuance of all this stuff, but like if you eat real food over a long period of time, you're probably gonna do okay.
That grew on the ground.
Like I also like if they wouldn't eat it like 100 years ago, you probably shouldn't eat it today. Yeah, and that's just kind of like the easiest way to decipher.
Like if you do those two things and you adhere to it long term, I think you're gonna make most, if not all, of the progress that these people propagate with like extreme things. Because I've fed into the extreme things over time, and I think a lot of times we look to something more extreme to, I don't know, it makes us feel good for whatever reason. It helps us avoid the work that we need to do on ourselves, which a lot of times is consistency, discipline, really that, like those two things.
So those guys, I think, are pushing a good message. Like they're saying whole foods, live ancestrally, stop with the garbage, stop with all the fake stuff, which are 100% behind. But then there's also their financial gain in saying like you should only eat animal food. Like they have supplements, whatever. I sell supplements, but just like I think if you can't eat some level of vegetables without a huge reaction in your body, you're not healthy. Yeah. You know, I also have a friend, Matt Maruka, the Light Diet. Some of you guys might have seen him online. The glasses I'm wearing, it's his company, Raw Optics /SolBrah. If you want to pick some up, blue light blockers, there you go.
Subtle plug.
Not subtle, but yeah, they're great. So he has a mentor, shall we say, who has, fully raw vegan, and he's jacked as well, which is not something you see and very often. I think and he believes that there's a bit of a role as to the level of energy that you have in yourself and your consciousness and awareness that plays a role in how you are digesting food in general. And then also, so like one person can eat this, the other person can eat the same thing, and like it gets digested differently or assimilated differently into the body based on how you are operating as a person. your level of resonant energy and the source energy that you are able to tap into can literally like energize you to the level that food does. So his, this is perspective. It's just interesting to talk about. He thinks that if you have to constantly rely on the most nutrient dense food of animals, let's say, and like, when you eat animals, you're consuming the energy of that animal, both calorically and just, metaphysically as well. If your body cannot operate unless you are constantly taking in the many lives of these animals, then maybe you aren't particularly strong as an individual. And like that's his perspective. So
because you're dependent.
It's like Joe Dispenza type stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's always a balance, right? Like if you want to try carnivore for a while, maybe it improves your health, and like if that gets you off the processed stuff you're having, cool, great, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But if you're slamming down like 4 burgers every day, like, and then you feel quite heavy and just like, okay, maybe it's not for you. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having some fermented vegetables that cultures all over the world have incorporated into their diet for whatever reason. Usually you look at the traditional aspects of communities, and if there's something that sticks around, then it's usually probably pretty good, whether or not they have a scientific explanation for it. So yeah, that's what I think about that stuff.
For me personally, I mean, I've never gone carnivore, but in terms of just like what I'm putting in my body was really huge when Fitz and I first moved in together. And it was more so just like, if you look at me from like a year ago to today, you couldn't even recognize me. So it was more so just like actually putting real food in my body made me feel like a completely different person for like the positive. Like the amount of like milestones and goals I've hit this year that I think are predicated on like a good diet was pretty much because of you two, of just like kind of like pushing me towards that sort of lifestyle.
You literally are what you eat.
Yeah,
literally.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, on such a fundamental level, like you are going to, like you are constantly writing the expression of your genome, right? And your actions are going to predicate that. And so everything that you put in is quite literally creating you through, which epigenetics are turned on and which ones are expressed. And yeah, with what he was saying too, just about like the more because I'm a nerd with some of this stuff. Like I like to know the hard data, the objective, like science. I want to understand the mechanism. You know what I mean? And the more I read with some of this stuff, I think that like the more you learn about biochemistry and about nutrition, you understand how these metabolic pathways function. And even if you just think ancestrally, like we evolved to be adaptable more than anything. Like, and I think that if you are pushing a message that is predicated on the fear of anything, you should not have a fearful relationship with food, right? Yeah. You should have a healthy one.
Right.
And so I think that, like I said, like I agree with what he's saying, and that the message is good. Eat ancestrally, live the way that your ancestors did. I do think that by and large, animal products are, somewhat necessary for human physiology.
Agreed.
I do know other friends too, like one of the guys I used to train with in Clearwater, like doesn't eat anything, and he's 44 now, completely shredded, like he can dunk still, like really in phenomenal shape.
He doesn't eat anything, or he doesn't eat any animals?
He doesn't eat any animal products, and to be honest with you, he doesn't eat much of anything. Like that's a big piece of what he does. He's like he was a sun maxer before I even found like you and like all those kind of people, like outside, like believing in light and in the sun.
Light is energy. If you're getting energy
in that
from
sort
the
of
sun,
quasi-spiritual.
You don't need to eat as much. That's like
human photosynthesis.
Yeah.
That's real.
And so
you guys beating me to it because the next topic is sun maxing, light. What's with the whole sun thing, guys? I mean, I love this. I love the sun. It's not. I'm thinking. I'm trying to.
Helios is right there, bro.
Right. Exactly. What is the situation with the sun? We hear people have told us for a minute that the sun is bad for you, it causes cancer, all these things. Personally, I love the sun since I was a kid. I grew up by the beach. It's the feeling you get off of like tanning for a bit is immense. So how can something that feels so good be bad for you?
Well, first of all, it's not. The conspiracy theorist in me will say that they want to make us fearful of something that gives us health, energy, knowledge. Again, Matt Maruka, the Light Diet, he has kind of put me on to light information. Light is information.
Light codes.
And we get information from the sun that tells our body what to do. And if we're not getting that information input, which most people aren't because they're indoors all day, and when they go outside, they're covering up or putting on sunscreen or whatever, then they're not getting the information that their body needs to express their best epigenetic self. They don't know how to their body doesn't know how to metabolize the foods that they are eating, even if they are eating healthy and you're not getting sun. Like everything, like vitamin D is a bastardization of what the sun does for us. Like that's one particular hormone pretty much that the body produces in response to that, but there are likely a million different other processes that are
basically every metabolic function requires sunlight. Like for example, I'll give you one quick one. Like if you have riboflavin, right, B2, vitamin B2, you cannot utilize it. It's quite literally activated by sunshine in a lot of metabolic pathways. It won't do anything without that light.
Yeah. So yeah,
even just like innately too. You spend a whole day out in the sun. Like how many times have we just spent all day at South Point, going to the beach and then working and then going for walks all day?
You feel amazing.
You feel great, and at the end of the day, you sleep like a baby. You don't have to like no blue light on you. Just like it's amazing.
When I was still working on cubicles and shit, I fucking hated it, man. It was the worst. It was so soul sucking, and I would be inside almost 8 hours, and I would literally. When my coworkers wouldn't see me like in my cubicle, they're like, "Oh, he's outside." I would just be like outside for 10 minutes, just like under the sun, and I would instantly have like a reset, man. Like I hated it. I hated the job just that little bit, much less. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Even in like a biological imperative, you can just look at animals. Dogs, for example. Like my dog is just always sitting in the sun. If she's inside and there's a little bit of sunlight through the window, she'll be sitting there.
Put up some of those videos, the cats and the dogs.
Yeah, just like look at what the animals are doing. They're not gonna do something wrong.
I was the same when I was working my office job. Every single break that I could, and just taking walks or whatever, it was like shirt off, out in the sun, to the point where my coworkers would like walk back and be like, "Oh, who's this half naked guy outside the office?" So, what's up, bro? Because that is probably the most fundamental core to improving your health, mood, all your hormones and everything. That it's just literally essential, and everyone's afraid of it. One, if you're told over and over and over again that something is going to hurt you, then your body literally can react in a worse way. Even if like two people can be outside getting the same amount of sun, if one's scared and one's not, and like, oh, this is good for me, no one thinks this is bad, that person literally gets burned worse, doesn't get the same benefits. That it's beliefs create your reality, and I think it's all part of the kind of larger plan of like making people buy this vitamin D supplement, and as if that's going to replace getting sunlight. And then if everyone's sicker, and vitamin D being one of the things that prevents the illness that we shut down the world for, it's like the mainstream health people are going to say something that's going to make you sicker so they can profit off it.
Well, it's a super interesting thing too, is like there's like 25 different forms of vitamin D. Yeah. And people go and they take D3, which is just one form of vitamin D. You make so many other...
It's not a vitamin, really.
It's not a vitamin. It's a hormone. Your body is endogenously, so within itself, producing it, which is, whereas like I agree with you.
Yeah.
But there's so many other forms of it too, and it's just like, it's so critical to everything.
So with all that being said, should there maybe be prerequisites or kind of like, hey, no. For example, skin cancer is a real thing, but why do people have skin cancer? Is it because they're eating shit and they're slathering sunscreen on their body? So before telling people, hey, go out to Sunmax and be like, clean up your fucking diet, and don't put fucking sunscreen and nasty fucking cosmetics on your skin, and then go outside and cook it with the sun.
Well, I had, from my personal experience when I first moved here, I didn't have the cleanest diet, and so it was more so I was introducing myself to the sun and incrementally, excuse me. So I would start for like 15, 20 minutes a day, then go to 35, then 45, and then hours. And there came to a period where I can just be out there for as long as I want, as long as my diet was good,
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I'm not just go out there and just start ripping the sun right away.
I'm always cautious when speaking on things like, for example, cancer, just because it is very serious, but also just like fundamentally, cancer in and of itself is a response, right? Like we all have cancer cells within our body right now, right? But we manage them well because everything is in order and is healthy, right? And so like you don't really have, in my opinion, like you don't have to worry about something systemic like that unless you're consistently putting in the responses that are going to have it be a dangerous outcome, if that makes sense. And so I think like, yeah, if you have a healthy functioning immune system and you have built up the tolerance to go outside in the sun, like you shouldn't have fear for that at all, because if anything, it's probably helping your immune response to have that sunlight and to have those metabolic functions perform optimally and all these different things.
The issue is people will spend all day, again, in the office under blue light and then go on holiday for like a week straight after not having seen the sun in months all day and be like, wow, how did I get burned?
Or they'll drink.
SolBrah said the sun was good for me. What a dickhead.
While they're drinking like 8 margaritas on the beach. You wonder, you're creating oxidative stress with all the booze while you're on vacation.
You're cooking yourself.
Of course you got burned.
Yeah.
You're cooking yourself.
Yeah.
You are.
Sunscreen as well, just important to note for people that don't know, it's like full of toxic things. The FDA had to take oxybenzene containing sunscreens off the market recently because they're carcinogen. It's a carcinogen. I'm sure pretty much every other sunscreen has something in it that is carcinogenic. They just haven't got it to the appropriate, trials or whatever, so they don't realize that it is carcinogenic. But you don't need sunscreen to protect yourself, and it's just stressing your liver, stressing the body, increasing the chance of cancer. But I think the reason skin cancer is increasing these days is because of blue light. All light is information, right? Yeah. So sunlight is good information that tells your body what to do properly. Blue light is information that fucks with your skin cells. So people are spending all day under blue light, not getting enough sunlight. That's actually producing the skin cancer more than sunlight is. So it's like, at a fundamental level, we're spending less time outside, more time indoors under blue light, and skin cancer is increasing. Yeah. So just like logically there, is the sun causing it? We're getting less sun and skin cancer is going up. That's Diets really are worse. And it's like, just simply there, it's like it doesn't add up. That like, the sun gives you cancer. No one's in the sun anymore. Skin cancer is increasing. It's like, that doesn't make sense.
And it's also just logical. Like, what did we do pre-1920?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, where was your sunscreen?
Yeah.
And people always make the argument like, oh, everybody died when they were 40, which that's not true at all. Basically, it's skewed from the maternal infant mortality rates. Yeah. People lived just as long, and they didn't have sunscreen then. Longer. So like,
some would say.
Yeah, longer. Probably
hundreds of years.
There are times though when like the UV index is just ridiculous, and we have a buddy who, have you heard of the Van Man? He's got that I have his
tallow.
Yeah, that's great. I put some on this morning, but he's got protection oils too. It's like 2-3 SPF, but it's enough for if you've like acclimated yourself to the sun enough, you're not gonna like really get crazy.
Yeah, well, look at what animals do. Like lions in the savannah, the African sun, they will go out at sunrise, they get sun all morning, but the hottest part of the day, they're chilling under the shade. Yeah. And I do that as well. Like I'm not going out and do my hardest workouts when it's like max UV because that's just like kind of asking for your skin to be stressed. Not saying I don't ever do that and your skin can absorb that and be fine, but it's like just be smart with it. Get sun most of the time, especially when you're first acclimating to it. It's just like morning sunlight. Yeah. Another interesting thing is that getting the sunlight in the morning when the UV is not high, again, the light information that you're taking in, your skin cells are preparing themselves for the rest of the sunlight, the rest of the day. So if you're not, like you're waking up, you shower, you go to work, and then you take your shirt off at lunchtime, that's the first time of the day that your body has seen the sun or like got that information. I remember reading a story of this soldier in Afghanistan who, if he went out in the morning of his patrols, all day in the Afghanistan sun, he would be able to take it. But if he didn't get out in the mornings, but then he had to go out later, he would get burnt. So that's
an interesting split test to us too, because we've done stuff like that at our pool. There are some mornings where the sun will just be absolutely ripping. We'll go up on the roof, and then go downstairs and take our calls and do the work we need to. And those days we feel excellent. Yeah. And some days when we're a little late to the game, we go to South Point or whatever. It's raining and now the sun is out. It's like it's a little interesting.
Morning sunlight is very, very important.
Yeah.
And I think all of it too, and maybe a segue is to not only just when you do that, right, but you give yourself that time in the morning where you are, taking care of your health. And I think it shapes your belief too. And I think that's something that you've touched on already and is maybe, one of the most important things I think for people from a health outcome lens is to have that belief. Like they've run tests on it. Like what you believe is ultimately going to influence your outcome, right?
Placebo.
Like, placebo. Yeah. That's
why it's a thing. Yeah.
They've run outcomes on the placebo, for example, with people that have, skin cancer or some sort of cancer, and they give them the sugar pill and they say, hey, we have this experimental drug that like really is probably going to cure you. And like massive, and they've done it for so many other illnesses, heart problems, lung problems, like across the board. And people believing that they're getting better makes them get better. And I think
you brought that up to me the other day. On kind of like another tangent though, but remember we were in the car coming back from getting the speakers or whatever from Nick's, and you were talking about the Joe Dispenza stuff of already kind of like believing in something that you already have or may not have it yet.
Yeah,
is going to propel you into that.
Yeah, you have to live in the ends of your outcome, and if you do that, you will energetically kind of align with
manifestation, quantum jumping, all that shit.
Yeah, quantum healing is very, very, very real, and maybe one of the most important things I think people could foster if they're looking to.
I do want to touch on that, but before we get there, I can't miss sunning your balls. This is the topic of the hour. Yeah. I had heard about sunning your balls before I started following SolBrah, and I was like, oh shit, that sounds crazy. I started laughing at it, but I never really practiced it. Then I started following SolBrah, and then I was like, bro, this is like a thing. Mm-hmm. So I started doing it. And I was like, wow, this shit fucking works. Now, the difference that I noticed was that it's, for me at least, it's like a supplement. You have to practice it. There's consistency with it. You can't just go once a month and, be like, oh, I'm fucking Superman. I kind of like just do it like a few times a week. And I think that's like 20 minutes.
Every day.
I don't do it enough. I'll say it.
We had that red light.
Just because, yeah, we did have the red light. The bulb broke or something. I need to get a new one. But yeah, I don't do it as much as I should. Mainly because I live in a Miami apartment building, and it's just
that's your property, bro. Let them out. Fuck it, don't look.
Our apartment balcony faces the courtyard, and so it's
mine faces an office building. Just wave at them.
Yeah, that's cool though. You can let the office wages bask in your ball light, but like me, I try not to.
That's a lot closer.
I try not to shit where I eat and show the entire apartment complex.
We could probably
my twig and berries.
New spot though.
Yeah, our new spot for sure.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Tell me a little bit about, the benefits that I've received is I feel better energy, better mood, more vitality. Definitely my libido's higher. But I also do work out legs and stuff like that. So,
Little horn maxing.
A little bit. So tell me about how you guys kind of like ran into this and started the practice and I guess kind of the science behind it.
Honestly, I can't remember where I first saw it. I'm probably not crediting someone that I should, but yeah, it's just like, maybe it was just like a development of like all these things. Oh, sunlight is good for me. Why have I not done it on the hormone center of testosterone? So locally, at least, if you want to get into the science, vitamin D is locally produced. So cells that get it will produce vitamin D and all the other great things based on like what skin cells are actually getting sunlight. So when you're sunning your balls, you get a local vitamin D boost, which is going to be one of the, that's where all the testosterone is made in the body. And vitamin D is one of the kind of gators for testosterone production. So if you have the cells, particularly the Leydig cells, that are now have a lot more of the supplies that they need to create testosterone, you're going to get more testosterone. Not to mention the fact that, sunlight enables vasodilation, so better blood flow to that area. It's going to mean, you get a bigger dick, harder dick when you're having sex. That's always great. But also blood flow is just going to mean everything else works better. As far as the science or whatever, no one's doing studies on this because who's going to fund that? And maybe I will, just to make a point. But anyone that's done it for like, the first time, you notice like your balls start squirming around, which is very...
The first thing Logan told me when he did it.
Yeah.
So it's like, kind of like... When I saw that, I was like, okay, there's something to this. Like your body's responding in such a way. And if you think about it, like what other animal in the entire globe, other than humans, like cover themselves in clothes when they're outdoors in the sun? No. Like the lion will lay back and get sun on his balls. I don't think he's conscious of it, but it's happening. So like if you think about it, for most people, they haven't had some areas of their body, the nether regions, exposed to sunlight their entire lives, which is like, you know, an ancient man would have just walked around naked along the savanna plains and like hunted or whatever. Just by nature of existing, he's getting that appropriate vitamin D all over the body, which is, you know, as we know, is good for you. So it doesn't make sense to me to just like, oh no, this area is gonna, you know, be very, very harmed if you have sunlight. It's just, it's not logical. And anyone that again practices it recognizes that, oh, this makes me feel better, this makes me feel good, more vital, then you never go back.
Also, I think it's important that we, you know, sort of dismantle these archaic standards of the patriarchy and let us, you know, free the noodle, right? If we're gonna free the noodle, we're gonna free the nip, like why do we as men get oppressed in that way?
The title of this
free
podcast,
the noodle.
Free the noodle. I would love that.
Some people.
And I think another related thing too there is just he pretty much nailed all the sunshine stuff. But I think even too, people like are really suppressing themselves with just the constriction. Like he said, like sexual energy is your, you know, strongest asset as a man, really.
Creative energy.
Creative energy. Yeah, your creative energy and just even how you feel to go, like, I think it really impacts like dopamine.
It definitely does.
And so, but also people are so constrictive of that area, like even just wearing underwear.
Yeah.
It's like you're massively negating what your body is naturally able to produce. And like, to me, low testosterone is this is a real pandemic.
Yeah.
And just another factor.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
It's metaphysical as well, like spiritual. It's like once you finally let yourself be as you were made, natural, nude, outdoors, like that is freeing for someone that's like a consistent office worker, like they've never really like been savage or anything like that, to like, it's very freeing to be completely naked outside, and it's like something gets lifted off you when you, and then you know, tap into all the intuition and things like that.
And I think part of that too is people are naturally, it's a part of that belief thing, you know, where they are like, we're programmed to have like shame to some extent, or like to care what other people might think of your body to an extent. And so it's very freeing and mentally freeing when you kind of let go of some of that tension of just like having anyone's external power over you be there.
Yeah,
I did that in Costa Rica. There was one morning where so one of the houses we stayed at in Jaco. I don't know if you've ever been to Costa Rica or not, but it was this beach. It was like beach jungle area, and our house was like right on this hill and it was completely open, and they had a sunroof. And while my girlfriend was still sleeping, I literally just was like naked all around the house and upstairs on the sunroof, and I felt amazing.
Yeah.
And I went surfing. You know, I just like it's impossible to not have a good day.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's wild, dude.
Yeah.
Before we close out the episode, I want to touch on the final aspect of the whole red pilling thing, and it's probably what I think is the most important aspect is red pilling when it comes to, we already talked about this a little bit, but really to go into it, red pilling when it comes to mentalities, belief systems, metaphysics, spirituality, they all kind of tie into each other, and how much your life can improve once your mentality changes. I think we all here are proponents for that and living testimonies for it. You change your mind, change your life through affirmations or through, some people might say, manifestation. All these things that people consider kind of woo-woo, kind of metaphysical. I personally have changed a lot of my life because of it. Oh. I know you guys have too, so I wanted to touch a little bit on that, what you guys think, how you guys got into it, and how your lives have kind of changed because of it.
Yeah, well, the central tenet, the general summary of it all is like your beliefs create your reality. That can go back to that thing I was saying about the only thing that we know is consciousness, and consciousness is how you interact with this physical reality. At an energetic level, the beliefs and thoughts that you have about yourself and the world will attract those circumstances to you at every single level, health-wise, financially, socially, romantically. If you don't love yourself, no one else can really truly love you as well. Yep. And it's about elevating yourself so that you are operating as much as possible in a high energy level, which is, you know, on the scale of emotions, you know, love, gratitude, appreciation, and just like peace and contentment with what you have and what is. Whatever you think and believe about the world is, again, what you're going to attract. So if you believe that all businesses fail, for example, you will never be able to achieve success in a business if you go in with that mindset. It's just not going to happen. Whether that's because you don't try as hard, so therefore you don't perform, or just because the people around you aren't gonna believe in you if you don't believe in yourself and you don't believe in your business. Like, you're trying to sell something and you don't think that your business is going to be successful, that's never going to happen. So that's like the literal interpretation of it. And then there's also the very real experience of you aligning yourself with the energetic signature that is going to attract those more beneficial circumstances. And that can apply to romantic relationships, business, yourself, your health. And that's just like, if you accept that, then you can choose to believe the things that are going to bring you the most success. And that's really how I think about it.
Yeah. I think, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think for me, and a lot, like, SolBrah, you put that beautifully.
Very, very beautifully.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, of course. But in my kind of own personal words, I tend to just have irrational optimism for myself. And so, like, no matter what the situation it is, I always try to laugh at it. And then I also try to, like, even if I'm, like, not pretty good at this, like, specific activity or a certain area of my life isn't going so well, I like, always just kind of tell myself to be irrationally positive, and then it always ends up working out. Even if it doesn't, I still feel much better about myself. So let's say, like, a certain situation doesn't happen, like a deal doesn't close, but I'm still so positive about it. It doesn't hurt nearly as bad. Just on to the next one.
I think a big measure of how far you've come with that whole belief, spirituality practices, when you take an L, how you react to it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been when I would take an L before, I'd dwell in it.
Yeah.
I'd, just
go lock in your room.
Yeah,
all
the
sit
bullshit.
around, go on your phone.
And now it's like another stripe on the tiger. You know what I mean? And I know that I believe that it's for a reason. And when one door closes, another one opens. You know what I mean? And usually it happens that way. And how many times, I try to remind myself, how many times, hindsight's 20/20, have I, taken an L, and then I look back and I'm like,
so grateful for that.
Right, exactly. So it's like, in that moment when you feel kind of lost or whatever, remind yourself of that shit. Like, bro, like, it's not.
An L is only like a loss because you perceive it that way.
Yeah.
It's like you can choose to see like the good in it. But I think it's important to mention like the faith in God perspective of that. Like that, if you have that, then you can take any, let's say, L or redirection because you can understand that, you are part of God. You are part of this connection to everything else, which we all are manifestations of that energy. So there is like no lack. There is no lack of abundance in achieving whatever you want, as long as you have faith that like things are flowing as they should. Looking back on your life, you can look at traumatic experiences as helping you. This is like, oh, that made me stronger and things like that. And as soon as you rewire your belief about that particular circumstance that happened, you can let that hamstring you forever. And like people get ruined over like something that happened as a child or a relationship, whatever. And then, push away the good things because of that. Or you can think, okay, that happened for a reason. That I was meant to go through that. I came to this life to experience that, and that was a good thing for me. And then your energetic signature has increased. That level of energy has increased. Your capacity to experience good things from that moment on is better.
Yeah, and I was going to say, too, that after his first excerpt on spirituality, I was going to bring up faith and mention faith because
I was just going to say that, too.
Because, like, I think about all of this stuff, and I remember, like, when I first was 20, like super broke, moved down, packed all my stuff in my car in Florida and rented a room from some random guy on Craigslist, right? Like, I remember that period because I kind of went through all of like the personal development, sort of like, at the end of the day, I was looking for like the easy out, right? I was looking for the thing that was going to help me get there, like with me avoiding the work, not on purpose, but subconsciously that's what was going on. And I think a lot of people do this. They look towards manifestation, or they look towards some of these things, or whatever the practice might be. And I don't have a problem with any of these practices at all. I think you should do them if you find them useful. But for me, the biggest thing was just having that faith long term, because also too, like, the tough thing, I think, is not to, have the belief necessarily or the thoughts or whatever. The tough thing is to do it on like a long enough time frame And because you also have to still go and do the thing. Like if you wanted to, whatever the goal might be, let's say you wanted to make $1 million, right? Like no matter, you can believe, but like there's still going to be tough work within that.
You have your own personal faith, but also how important it is to maintain faith, not just in your own life, but at a societal level and at a global level too. Like in my Instagram, I'll post like current events sometimes on my stories, whether local or national or whatever the fuck. And a lot of my followers respond like, "Oh my God, like it's the end of the world, it's that, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Yo, like think about what if these are the steps that need to take place in order for something good to happen, right? How many times in your life, again, to what I was saying, shitty things happen, and then you look back and you're like, oh, it was all for the better. Like it got a little dark, but it was all for the better. So keep the light on. You know what I mean?
I also think that since negativity gets clicks, it's so easy to have that prominent in all the media sphere. But I think there is a good direction that the world is taking. Maybe small steps, but I think it is going in a relatively right direction. And so like having faith in like everyone around us is pretty much a good thing. It's going to be happening soon.
Well, I think too, like we mentioned it early on the show, like the angles of the nefarious people that are here and like the depopulation and like all these different things. But more than anything, I think that one of the narratives so that, you know, people who are maybe in control, like I would say, for example, somebody like the Federal Reserve, right, who has a massive amount of power in society. Like these people who are doing things like that are bad collectively on a societal or a global level for people, the only way they win is if you are scared. If you let them, man. If you let them get in your head, or you let things get in your head, that is the only way you lose. Yep. Period. Like if you maintain your faith in that level and your faith in society and people collectively do that, then these sort of like ill will or you know negative things don't have any power at all.
Fear is lack of faith. Like at a fundamental level. Yep. And if you can, in your own world and in yourself, operate at a level energetically that is higher than fear being like literally the lowest level energy that you can emit, the lowest level emotion that you can have. If you are consistently above that, then the fear matrix that they try and put over people literally isn't on your wavelength and so cannot affect you. The more people that escape that fear matrix at a collective level, the collective human consciousness, once it raises above a certain amount, boom, the spell will be broken. There'll be like a network effect of like people kind of raising each other up. And then, you know, people like these small people, the organizations, whatever, they're trying to do what they want to do to us. They couldn't make humankind like fight wars against each other. That's human nature just operating under fear. If everyone was just like, oh, no, I'm not going to do this. The last couple of years, like people were policing each other. People were willingly lining up to get these, you know, these things. If you don't let the fear in to control you, then they literally can't do anything. So that's like the most bang for your buck action to take is like don't live in fear, do the best you can, and just like always have faith that everything will work out for good. That's what we can do.
Yeah, and I think it's really important because you know, we all are spreading our own messages. That's one thing, Josue, I love about what you do is you have that like tangible physical reality effect that it's like kind of hard for all of us. I mean, we have it in places, but having that like real world, like small community ties, like actually building like physical people and that wavelength, I think is super cool and really important. Something that I think people who are red pilled are really, really missing. Like, and obviously Sol, you have it a bit now, working with like Praxis and doing all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think it's something that's really missing from the world is getting those like people who think that way, boots on the ground, handshakes, hugs.
Yeah. The most red-pilled thing you can do is go to your neighbor, smile at them, like give them a hug and say, hey, how can I help you today? Yeah. Like, that's the most red-pilled thing.
And you feel way better giving like that too. Yeah. Always.
Beautiful way to end the podcast, guys.
Yeah. Go kiss your neighbor today and sun your balls. Maybe you sun your balls first, then kiss your neighbor.
Or you could do it at the same time, whatever you feel. You
free the noodle, baby. That's right.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Great convo. You guys want to go ahead and plug your socials for
Yeah, SolBrah, at real SolBrah on Instagram, SolBrah on Twitter, SolBrah.
Yeah, I'm at LOGFITZ 6, LogFitz 6 on all platforms.
Yeah, I'm Jake Yngblood on all platforms, but it's YNGBLOOD, and it's actually my real middle name, so it's not just like some cool alias. It's
He's not like just a Zoomer. He's
just
also
naturally
young.
cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening, for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, do all the things.
Do it.
I'll catch you next time. And as always, no se metan con nadie para que nadie se las meta. See you next time. Awesome. You guys are wondering what the fuck that I just said.
Yeah.
It's like a Cuban slang that it's like, don't fuck with anybody so you don't get fucked. So basically just mind your business, you know. It's the best thing to do.
All right.